The morning sun filtered through the vibrant kente cloth drapes of the Johnson family home, casting intricate patterns on the hardwood floors. Today was the day Mr. Johnson would marry Sarah, a woman who had seamlessly woven herself into their lives over the past year. The air buzzed with excitement, but beneath the surface, a faint undercurrent of unease lingered, unnoticed by most. Tommy Johnson, a sharp-eyed 16-year-old, moved through the house with purposeful steps. He adjusted his father's tie for the 100th time, ensuring each knot was flawless. His father, Marcus Johnson, a man of strong presence and kind heart, rarely showed his nerves. But today, Tommy could sense a subtle tension. It wasn't just any wedding day. It was a pivotal moment that would redefine their family's future. The living room was a hive of activity. His mother, Linda Johnson, orchestrated the final decorations with practiced grace, her hands deftly arranging fresh African flowers and smoothing tablecloths. The scent of blooming orchids mingled with the aroma of rich coffee and pastries, creating a comforting yet chaotic atmosphere. Guests began to arrive, their laughter and chatter filling the space with warmth and anticipation. As Tommy checked the guest list one last time, his mind wandered to the journey that had led to this moment. Sarah had been a delightful addition, charming, attentive, and seemingly sincere. Yet lately a nagging feeling of doubt gnawed at him. He couldn't shake the impression that Sarah was hiding something important that could disrupt their carefully planned lives. The church stood tall and majestic at the end of the driveway, its stained glass windows reflecting colorful patterns onto the neatly paved path. Decorated with elegant white flowers and draped in soft pastel colors, it looked like the perfect setting for a wedding. Friends and family began to take their seats, their conversations creating a soothing backdrop to the morning's events. Tommy's best friend Jake arrived with a wide grin, breaking his reverie. "Ready for the big day?" Jake asked, clapping him on the back. "As ready as I'll ever be," Tommy replied, forcing a smile. Deep down, he felt a knot tighten in his stomach. There was something about today that didn't sit right, but he couldn't pinpoint what it was. The ceremony was about to begin. The organist played a gentle prelude, and everyone stood as the bride made her entrance. Tommy took a deep breath, straightening his suit jacket. His father stood at the altar, looking dapper and more handsome than ever in his tailored suit. Linda gave him a reassuring nod, her eyes meeting his with a silent message of support. Just as Sarah began walking down the aisle, Tommy's attention was caught by an unfamiliar man standing near the back of the church. The man's presence was out of place among the well-dressed guests. His eyes darted around nervously, and his hands fidgeted with the strap of his briefcase. Tommy's curiosity was piqued, but he decided to keep an eye on him without drawing attention. Sarah appeared radiant in her flowing white dress, her smile warm, as she glanced toward Tommy, offering a reassuring nod. But as she moved closer, Tommy caught a fleeting glimpse of something unsettling in her eyes, an emotion that didn't match the joy of the occasion. It was gone as quickly as it had appeared, leaving him unsettled. The ceremony began, and Marcus recited his vows with heartfelt sincerity. Sarah mirrored his emotions, her voice steady and filled with love. Yet Tommy couldn't focus on the words. His mind kept drifting back to the mysterious man and Sarah's brief, enigmatic look. As the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, applause erupted, and the couple shared their first kiss. Guests began to mingle, moving toward the reception area. Tommy felt a surge of relief, hoping that the rest of the day would unfold without any more strange occurrences. However, as the celebration continued, Tommy's unease only grew. He noticed Sarah frequently stepping away from the crowd, her demeanor shifting subtly each time she returned. Sometimes she looked distracted. Other times she seemed anxious, as if she were hiding a secret. The uninvited man remained at the back, never fully blending in with the festivities. During dinner, conversations flowed, and laughter echoed through the banquet hall. But Tommy couldn't shake his growing suspicion. He watched as Sarah and the mysterious man exchanged brief, intense glances. At one point, she whispered something in his ear, causing him to flinch and quickly turn away. Tommy's heart raced. What was going on? As the evening progressed, the tension became almost palpable. Tommy's mother noticed his distracted state and approached him. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Tommy hesitated, unsure of how to voice his concerns without causing a scene. "Yeah, Mom. Just a bit nervous, I guess," he replied, forcing another smile. But deep inside, Tommy knew there was more to the story. The man's presence, Sarah's odd behavior, and that unsettling look in her eyes all pointed to something he couldn't ignore. He glanced around the room, feeling the weight of his family's happiness resting on his shoulders. If there was a hidden truth, he needed to uncover it before it was too late. As the night wore on, Tommy found himself torn between enjoying the moment and investigating the mystery that seemed to shadow their celebration. He watched as guests danced and celebrated, trying to focus on the joy of the day, but his mind kept returning to the unanswered questions that gnawed at him. Finally, as the reception began to wind down, Tommy made a silent promise to himself. He would get to the bottom of the strange occurrences, no matter what it took. The big day was meant to be a celebration of love and family, but beneath the surface, dark secrets were threatening to unravel everything they held dear. Standing by the window, Tommy watched the sun dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the lawn. The once vibrant colors of the day were fading into the muted tones of twilight, mirroring his own growing sense of foreboding. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, as if hiding the truths that were yet to be revealed. As he stood there, lost in thought, the faint sound of footsteps echoed from the back of the church. Tommy's heart skipped a beat. He turned to see the mysterious man making his way through the crowd, his eyes fixed on Sarah. The man's presence sent a chill down Tommy's spine, intensifying the suspense that had been building throughout the day. The guests began to disperse slowly, the initial excitement giving way to a more subdued atmosphere. Tommy felt a surge of determination. He couldn't let his instincts lead him astray. Gathering his courage, he decided to follow the man, hoping to uncover the truth that was just out of reach. As he moved through the departing crowd, Tommy kept his eyes on the man, who seemed to be heading toward the parking lot. Each step brought him closer to answers, but also deeper into uncertainty. The suspense of the day had transformed into a silent quest, driven by a need to protect his family and uncover the secrets that threatened their happiness. Reaching the parking lot, Tommy saw the man stop by a sleek, black SUV. He approached cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. The man looked up, meeting Tommy's gaze with a mixture of surprise and caution. For a moment, time seemed to stand still, the weight of unspoken truths hanging in the air. "Can I help you?" the man asked, his voice low and guarded. Tommy took a deep breath, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. "I'm Tommy Johnson. My dad is getting married today. Do I know you?" The man hesitated, glancing around before responding. "I need to talk to Mr. Johnson. It's important." Before Tommy could press further, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed in the parking lot. Marcus appeared, his face bright with happiness, oblivious to the tension brewing behind the scenes. Seeing the man's desperation, Marcus's expression turned serious. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice firm but kind. The man took a step forward, his eyes never leaving Marcus. "Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry to intrude on your special day, but there's something you need to know about Sarah." A collective gasp rippled through the gathering, and all eyes turned to the couple. Sarah's face paled, and she took a step back, her composure cracking for the first time that evening. Tommy felt a surge of protectiveness and fear. He knew this was the moment his instincts had been warning him about. The suspense of the day had reached its peak, and the truth was about to unravel in ways none of them could have imagined. The night had settled in, casting long shadows across the Johnson family home. Inside, the reception was in full swing, filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the soft melodies of a live band playing jazz classics. Yet, amidst the celebration, an undercurrent of unease lingered in Tommy's mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, and his instincts only grew stronger as the evening progressed. After the formalities of the ceremony, the guests moved to the beautifully decorated banquet hall. Tables were laden with delicious Southern cuisine, and the room was adorned with twinkling lights that created a warm, inviting atmosphere. Tommy found himself glancing repeatedly toward the entrance of the church, his eyes searching for any sign of the mysterious man who had caught his attention earlier. As the night wore on, the festivities reached a lively peak. Guests danced to upbeat R&B tunes, shared stories, and toasted to Marcus and Sarah's happiness. Yet Tommy's mind was elsewhere. He noticed Sarah stepping away from the crowd more often, her smiles occasionally faltering as she cast furtive glances toward the back of the room. It was subtle, but to Tommy, it was undeniable that something was wrong. At one point, Tommy decided to approach his father, who was engrossed in conversation with some relatives. "Dad, can I talk to you for a moment?" he asked quietly, his voice tinged with concern. Marcus looked up, his face lighting up with pride. "Of course, son. Everything okay?" Tommy hesitated, unsure how to express his growing unease without sounding paranoid. "Yeah, just wanted to make sure everything's going smoothly." Marcus nodded, giving him a reassuring smile before turning back to his guests. Tommy returned to his seat, but his mind was restless. He couldn't ignore the uneasy feeling that had settled in his stomach. Determined to find answers, he decided to take a closer look at the mysterious man who had arrived earlier. Slipping away from the main crowd, Tommy made his way toward the back of the church. The room was dimly lit, with only a few guests lingering near the entrance. The man stood there, his posture tense, eyes darting around nervously. He wore a dark suit, his face partially obscured by a hat, adding to his enigmatic presence. As Tommy approached, the man seemed to notice him, a flicker of recognition passing through his eyes. "Can I help you?" the man asked, his voice low and cautious. Tommy took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "I'm Tommy Johnson. My dad is getting married today." "Do I know you?" The man hesitated, glancing toward the main hall before meeting Tommy's gaze again. I need to talk to Mr. Johnson. It's important." Tommy felt a chill run down his spine. "What's this about? Maybe you should speak to my dad directly." Before the man could respond, Sarah appeared, her expression tight with worry. "Tommy, is everything all right?" she asked, stepping between them. Tommy glanced between Sarah and the man, his suspicion deepening. "Who is this?" he demanded, his voice louder than he intended. The man took a step back, his eyes pleading. "Please, I mean no harm. I just need to tell your father something urgent." Sarah reached out to gently place a hand on Tommy's shoulder. "Tommy, it's okay. Let him speak." But Tommy wasn't convinced. He sensed that Sarah was hiding something she didn't want him to know. Why does he need to talk to Dad? What's going on? Before the man could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed through the church. Marcus was approaching, his face bright with happiness. He greeted his guests warmly, unaware of the tension brewing behind the scenes. Seeing the man's desperation, Marcus's expression turned serious. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice firm but kind. The man stepped forward, his eyes never leaving Marcus's. "Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry to intrude on your special day, but there's something you need to know about Sarah. A collective gasp rippled through the guests, and all eyes turned to the couple. Sarah's face paled, and she took a step back, her composure cracking for the first time that evening. Tommy felt a surge of protectiveness toward his father. "Dad, if Sarah is in danger, what are we going to do?" he asked, his voice steady, despite the turmoil inside him. Marcus placed a reassuring hand on Tommy's shoulder. "We need to stay calm and let Detective Ramirez explain everything." Ramirez nodded, pulling out a small notebook from his pocket. "Sarah has a past that she hasn't shared with your family. There are things she's hiding, things that could change everything." Sarah's eyes welled up with tears, her voice trembling as she spoke. "That's not true. I can explain." But the damage was done. The room was filled with uncertainty and fear, the joyous occasion now overshadowed by doubt and suspicion. Tommy stood his ground, determined to uncover the truth, even as his father looked conflicted and hurt. Marcus took a deep breath, trying to process the information. He loved Sarah, but he couldn't ignore what Tommy had revealed. The atmosphere was tense, and uncertainty hung in the air. The reception hall was thick with tension, the joyous atmosphere now overshadowed by the mysterious man's urgent warning. Guests exchanged uneasy glances, whispers filling the once lively room. Tommy stood beside his father, feeling the weight of his family's happiness, teetering on the edge of uncertainty. Marcus took a deep breath, his face a mask of conflicted emotions. "Sarah, please, tell us what's going on," he urged gently, his eyes searching hers for answers. Sarah looked around, her hands trembling as she tried to find the right words. Tommy's heart pounded in his chest. He knew he had to do something, but uncertainty held him back. What exactly did Sarah know? Was she truly hiding a dangerous past, or was there another side to this story? Sarah finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "There are things from my past that I thought were long gone. People who want to hurt me, and I was hoping to start fresh with your family." Her eyes welled up with tears and she glanced towards the window, as if expecting someone to burst in at any moment. The mysterious man took a step forward, his presence commanding attention. "I'm Detective Ramirez," he introduced himself, removing his hat. "Sarah was involved in a case a few years ago that never fully resolved. There are individuals out there who believe she has information that could expose them." A collective gasp echoed through the room. Detective Ramirez's revelation only deepened the mystery, leaving everyone more confused and anxious. Tommy felt a surge of protectiveness toward his father. "Dad, if Sarah is in danger, what are we going to do?" he asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. Marcus placed a reassuring hand on Tommy's shoulder. "We need to stay calm and let Detective Ramirez explain everything." Ramirez nodded, pulling out a small notebook from his pocket. "Sarah came to me a few weeks ago, fearing for her safety. She revealed details about a criminal organization involved in various illicit activities. I've been trying to ensure her protection ever since." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the gravity of Ramirez's words. Guests who had been celebrating moments ago now sat tensely, processing the shocking information. Sarah wiped her tears, gathering her strength. "I didn't want to burden my new family with my past, but with today being my wedding, I thought it was time to be honest. I never intended for any of this to affect your father's special day." Tommy glanced at his father, who looked equally troubled. "Dad, are you sure about this? Do you believe Detective Ramirez?" Marcus looked back at Sarah, his eyes softening. "Sarah, if what he's saying is true, we need to help you, but we also need to protect ourselves and everyone around us." Before anyone could respond, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Panic rippled through the guests as they realized the seriousness of the situation. Ramirez looked towards the entrance of the church. "We need to leave immediately. The people threatening Sarah might be close. For your safety, we should all evacuate the premises." Tommy's mind raced. Leaving the reception abruptly would raise suspicions, but staying posed a greater risk. He glanced at his father, who nodded in agreement. "We need to move quickly," followed Detective Ramirez's lead. As guests hurried to gather their belongings, the atmosphere shifted from confusion to urgency. Tommy felt a hand grip his arm tightly. It was Jake, his best friend, his eyes wide with concern. "Tommy, what's happening? Are you okay?" "I think we need to leave," Tommy whispered urgently, pulling Jake towards the exit. "Something's not right." They made their way through the crowd, the tension palpable. Guests murmured anxiously, some casting fearful glances towards the windows, expecting trouble to erupt at any moment. Marcus stayed close to Sarah, offering her silent support. "We're going to get through this together," he assured her, his voice firm despite the chaos. As they reached the front doors, Ramirez signaled for everyone to remain calm. "Please, stay calm and follow us to a safe location," he instructed, his authoritative tone cutting through the panic. Tommy felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He glanced back at the reception hall, seeing Sarah standing alone, her eyes meeting his for a brief moment. There was fear there, but also something else. Trust, perhaps, that he would help uncover the truth. Just as they began to move, the doors burst open, and a group of men in dark clothing stormed into the church. Their leader, a tall man with a scar running down his cheek, scanned the room with a menacing glare. "Where is she?" he demanded, his voice cold and threatening. Ramirez stepped forward, his hand instinctively reaching for his badge. "You need to leave now. This doesn't concern you," he said firmly, standing his ground. The leader laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You think you can protect her? She knows too much. We're taking her back." Tommy's heart raced as he saw the danger unfold. Without thinking, he grabbed Ramirez's arm. "Detective, we need to go. Now!" he shouted, pulling his father and mother along. Marcus glanced back, his protective instincts kicking in. "Stay close, everyone," he instructed, leading the way towards the side exit. Chaos erupted as guests scrambled to follow their leaders, the tension reaching a boiling point. Tommy could hear the shouts and struggles behind him, the threat of violence hanging heavy in the air. They managed to slip out of the church, the cool night air a stark contrast to the heated turmoil inside. Ramirez led them down a narrow alleyway, his face grim. "We need to move quickly. These men are dangerous and won't stop until they find Sarah." As they hurried through the streets, Tommy's mind raced with questions. What exactly did Sarah know? How deep was the criminal organization involved? And most importantly, was Sarah truly in danger, or was there more to this story than met the eye? The group reached a parked van waiting in the shadows. Ramirez quickly ushered everyone inside, and the doors shut behind them with a soft thud. The interior was dimly lit, providing a semblance of safety from the chaos outside. As they sped away from the church, Tommy glanced out the window, watching the scene unfold. The men in dark clothing were scattered among the guests, confusion and fear etched on their faces. It was clear they had been searching for someone, and their failure to find her only heightened the suspense. Ramirez turned to face the group, his expression serious. "We're going to a safe house where Sarah can explain everything and we can figure out our next steps. Stay here, stay quiet, and let us handle this." Tommy felt a mix of relief and anxiety. The immediate danger had passed, but the uncertainty of what lay ahead was daunting. He looked at his father, who offered a reassuring nod. "We're here for you, son. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." As the van drove into the night, the suspense hung heavily in the air. The Johnson family had been thrust into a web of secrets and danger, and Tommy knew that uncovering the truth about Sarah was only the beginning. The shadows of the past were reaching out, threatening to engulf their lives, and the journey to protect their family was just starting. Tommy took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. The wedding day that was meant to celebrate love and unity had transformed into a fight for survival and truth. With his family by his side, he was determined to uncover the secrets that threatened to tear them apart, no matter how dark and suspenseful the path might be. The van's interior was dimly lit, providing a semblance of safety from the chaos that had erupted moments before. Tommy sat beside his father, Marcus, who was visibly shaken. His mother, Linda, stood close by, her face etched with concern. Detective Ramirez maintained a watchful eye on their surroundings, ensuring no immediate threats lingered. Tommy took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing heart. "Dad, you have to believe me," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sarah isn't who you think she is." Marcus looked at his son, confusion and worry evident in his eyes. "Tommy, what are you talking about? What do you mean Sarah is hiding something?" Before Tommy could respond, Detective Ramirez interjected, his tone serious. "Mr. Johnson, I understand this is overwhelming, but Sarah has been linked to a dangerous criminal organization. They believe she possesses information that could expose their operations." Marcus's eyes widened in disbelief. "That can't be true. Sarah is a good person. She's been nothing but kind to our family." Linda placed a reassuring hand on her husband's shoulder. "Honey, maybe there's more to this than we know. We need to listen to what Detective Ramirez is saying." Tommy felt a surge of frustration. "You've seen her interactions, the way she acted today. She was hiding something, and I know it. We need to take action before it's too late." Marcus shook his head slowly, his face clouded with doubt. "Tommy, I don't know what to believe right now. Sarah has been a wonderful addition to our lives. I can't imagine she's involved in anything dangerous." Detective Ramirez stepped forward, pulling out his notebook. "Mr. Johnson, we have evidence that ties Sarah to past criminal activities. She approached me weeks ago, fearing for her safety because of the information she holds. Her sudden involvement in your life raises red flags that we cannot ignore." Tommy's frustration turned to desperation. "Dad, please, think about the strange things I noticed today. The mysterious man, Sarah's odd behavior, it all points to something sinister, something." Marcus took a deep breath, trying to process the information. His gaze shifted between his son and Detective Ramirez, searching for any sign of deception. "Is there any proof of these accusations? How do we know this isn't a misunderstanding?" Detective Ramirez opened his notebook, revealing a series of documents and photographs. "Here are records of Sarah's previous associations and incidents that suggest her involvement with this organization. We believe she's been trying to leave that life behind, but they won't let her go." Linda leaned in, her voice gentle but firm. "Maybe Sarah is in danger, and we need to help her. If she trusts you, Detective, perhaps she did mention something to her." Marcus's shoulders slumped as he absorbed the gravity of the situation. "If what you're saying is true, then we need to act quickly. But we have to approach this carefully. We can't just accuse her without solid evidence." Tommy nodded, relieved that his father was beginning to understand. "We need to find out the truth. Maybe there's something Sarah hasn't told us. We can confront her together and get answers." Detective Ramirez agreed. "That's a sensible approach. I can arrange a meeting with Sarah to discuss this further. In the meantime, I recommend that you and your family remain vigilant and avoid any confrontations that might escalate the situation." As Ramirez spoke, the weight of his words hung heavy in the van. Marcus looked down, deep in thought, while Linda squeezed his shoulder reassuringly. Tommy glanced at his mother, finding strength in her supportive presence. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by the piercing ring of Marcus's phone vibrating on the seat beside him. He glanced at the screen, his expression darkening. "It's 911, he said, his voice tense. "I need to make a call." Tommy watched as his father dialed the number, his heart pounding in his chest. "Dad, wait," he began, but Marcus held up a hand to stop him. "I need to report what just happened," he said, his voice wavering. "There's a situation at my wedding. A man just interrupted the wedding, claiming there's something wrong with Sarah." Detective Ramirez frowned, concern evident in his eyes. "Is everything okay?" Marcus hesitated for a moment before replying, I need to handle this. Please give us some privacy." Before Ramirez could respond, the call connected, and Marcus spoke into the phone with urgency. Tommy strained to hear his father's words, piecing together the fragmented conversation. "Yes, there's been an incident at our wedding reception. A man made some alarming accusations about my fiancée, Sarah. I need police assistance immediately." After a few tense moments, Marcus hung up the phone, his face pale. "They're sending officers to the church. I need to go back and ensure everything is okay." Linda looked at him with worry. "Are you sure you want to do that? It might not be safe." Marcus nodded resolutely. "I have to. If there's any truth to what was said, we need to address it now. I can't let fear take over our lives without understanding what's happening." Tommy felt a pang of anxiety. "Dad, please be careful. We're here with you." Marcus offered a weak smile. "I will. Thank you, son." As he prepared to leave the van, Detective Ramirez stepped closer. "If you need assistance, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help." Marcus gave a brief nod before exiting the van, followed closely by Linda. Tommy stayed behind, watching his father's departure with a mix of concern and determination. He knew that uncovering the truth about Sarah was crucial, not just for his family's safety, but for their peace of mind. Detective Ramirez turned to Tommy and his mother. "If you have any additional information or concerns, feel free to contact me. We're committed to ensuring your family's safety." As Ramirez left the van to attend to the situation at the church, Tommy glanced around, the suspense of the day intensifying. Questions swirled in his mind. What exactly was Sarah hiding? Could his father's wedding truly be jeopardized by secrets from the past? Linda placed a comforting hand on Tommy's shoulder. "We'll get through this together, no matter what happens." Tommy nodded, feeling a resolve harden within him. The day that was meant to celebrate love and unity had spiraled into a web of suspense and uncertainty. Determined to protect his family and uncover the truth, he knew that the real challenges were only just beginning. The sun had long set, and the church was now enveloped in darkness, the only light coming from the soft glow of candles and the flickering lanterns outside. Marcus stood at the entrance, his heart pounding in his chest. He glanced back at his family in the van, their faces filled with worry and fear. Taking a deep breath, he knew he had to face whatever was happening inside. As he stepped into the church, the cool night air greeted him, carrying the faint sounds of sirens in the distance. The once serene space was now a scene of confusion and tension. Guests huddled together in small groups, whispering anxiously. Detective Ramirez followed closely, his presence commanding and reassuring. Marcus approached the altar, where Sarah stood with a troubled expression. Her eyes darted around the room, avoiding his gaze. Detective Ramirez stood beside her, holding a file tightly in his hand. "Sarah, we need to talk," Marcus said softly, his voice wavering between concern and authority. Sarah took a shaky breath, her shoulders hunched. "Dad, I'm so sorry you had to find out this way," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never meant for any of this to happen." Before she could continue, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the church. All eyes turned toward the entrance as the mysterious man from earlier strode in, flanked by two burly men. His presence sent a ripple of fear through the crowd. "Where is she?" the man demanded, his voice harsh and unforgiving. His eyes locked onto Sarah, filled with a mix of anger and desperation. Detective Ramirez stepped forward, his stance protective. "Sir, you need to leave. This doesn't concern you." The man sneered, taking a step closer. "She knows too much. We're taking her back where she belongs." Tommy watched in horror as the situation escalated. He could feel his father's grip tighten on his shoulder, a silent plea for calm. Marcus stood his ground, his eyes never leaving the man's. "Leave now, or we'll call the authorities," Marcus warned, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. The man laughed, a cold, menacing sound. You think you can stop us? She's ours. Suddenly, the sound of police sirens grew louder, approaching rapidly. The tension in the room heightened as more officers began to arrive, their flashing lights casting eerie shadows on the walls. Detective Ramirez took advantage of the distraction. "This is your final warning. Leave peacefully or face the consequences," he declared, his voice firm. The man glanced toward the approaching sirens, his eyes narrowing. He exchanged a look with his companions, then turned his back on Sarah. "This isn't over," he spat before motioning for his men to follow him out of the church. As the last of the intruders fled, a collective sigh of relief swept through the guests. Police officers quickly moved in, securing the area and ensuring everyone's safety. Detective Ramirez approached Marcus and Sarah, his expression serious but relieved. "Is everyone all right?" he asked, scanning the room for any signs of lingering threats. Marcus nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving Sarah's. "Yes, thanks to you, but we need to understand what's happening." Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling but resolute. "I have information that can take down a dangerous criminal organization. I was trying to protect myself and my new family by keeping it hidden. But things got out of hand." Detective Ramirez opened the file he had brought earlier, laying it out on a nearby table. "Sarah's cooperation is crucial in bringing down this organization. We need to ensure her safety and gather all the evidence she has. With her help, we can make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." Tommy felt a mix of emotions: fear for his family, confusion about Sarah's true intentions, and a burning desire to uncover the truth. He glanced at his father, who nodded encouragingly, signaling him to stay strong. Marcus turned to Sarah, his eyes filled with a blend of love and concern. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" "We could have helped you." Sarah took a deep breath, her gaze meeting her father's. "I wanted to start fresh, to build a new life with you all without the shadows of my past. But they found me, and I couldn't keep hiding anymore." Linda stepped forward, placing a comforting hand on Sarah's back. "We're here for you, Sarah. Whatever you need, we'll support you." Just then, an officer approached, reporting that the remaining members of the criminal organization had been apprehended thanks to Detective Ramirez's swift actions. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but the tension in the room remained palpable. Tommy felt a sense of relief, but knew that the day's events were far from over. He looked around at the gathered family and friends, realizing how fragile their peace had become. The joyful celebration had been overshadowed by secrets and danger, leaving everyone to grapple with the revelations. Detective Ramirez turned to address the group. "Sarah's cooperation is crucial in bringing down this organization. We need to ensure her safety and gather all the evidence she has. With her help, we can make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." Marcus nodded, his resolve strengthening. "We'll do whatever it takes to help. Sarah, you're part of our family now. We stand by you." As the night wore on, the church slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. Guests began to leave, offering words of support and comfort to the Johnson family. The air was still thick with the remnants of fear and uncertainty, but there was also a glimmer of hope that justice would prevail. Tommy stood by the window, watching the first light of dawn break over the horizon. The events of the day had changed everything, but he felt a newfound determination to protect his family and uncover the truth behind Sarah's past. Marcus joined him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We've been through a lot today, but we're stronger together. Whatever comes next, we'll face it as a family." Tommy nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The suspense of the day had given way to a deeper understanding of the complexities of trust and love. As the sun rose, casting away the shadows of the night, the Johnson family prepared to navigate the challenges ahead, united by their commitment to uncover the truth and protect one another. The first light of dawn began to seep through the curtains, casting a soft glow over the Johnson family home. The events of the previous night weighed heavily on everyone. The house, usually filled with warmth and laughter, now felt quiet and tense. Tommy sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at his breakfast, his mind replaying the chaotic scenes from the church. Marcus walked in, his face still pale but showing signs of relief. He sat down beside Tommy, placing a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. "We're safe now, Tommy," he said softly. "Detective Ramirez and his team did a great job." Tommy looked up, meeting his father's eyes. "Do you think it's really over?" Marcus sighed, shaking his head. "I hope so, but we need to stay cautious. Detective Ramirez mentioned that the organization is dangerous. We can't let our guard down." Linda entered the kitchen, her presence soothing. She placed a gentle hand on Tommy's back. "We're all here for each other. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Tommy nodded, feeling a mix of relief and lingering fear. He glanced at Sarah, who was sitting quietly in the living room, her eyes red from crying. She looked up and gave him a small, grateful smile. "Thank you for believing me," she whispered. Tommy walked over and sat beside her. "I just wanted to protect my family," he replied. "I'm glad you're safe." Sarah reached out, taking his hand. "And I'm grateful for your help. I never wanted to bring any danger into your lives." Detective Ramirez entered the room, his expression serious but kind. "Good morning," he greeted. "I wanted to update you on the situation." Everyone turned to him, eager for answers. Ramirez took a seat, pulling out his notebook. "We've successfully dismantled the main operations of the criminal organization. The men who came last night have been arrested, and we're confident that their leader is in custody." Marcus breathed a sigh of relief. "That's wonderful news. Thank you for everything, Detective." Ramirez nodded. "It's my duty, but we must remain vigilant. Criminal organizations can be resilient. I recommend staying low for a while and avoiding unnecessary attention." Linda stood up, moving to the window. "What happens now, Sarah?" Sarah took a deep breath, her voice steady. "Now I can finally move forward. With your support, I can help bring down any remaining threats and start a new life." Tommy felt a surge of pride. "We're with you, Sarah. Whatever you need, we'll help." As the day progressed, the family began to rebuild their sense of normalcy. Friends and relatives arrived, offering support and understanding. The tension in the house slowly lifted, replaced by a sense of unity and determination. Later that afternoon, Detective Ramirez returned with more information. "We've found the leader of the organization. He's in a secure facility and will be prosecuted for his crimes." Marcus nodded. "That's a big step forward. Thank you for all your hard work." Ramirez smiled slightly. "It's a team effort. And Sarah, your cooperation was crucial in making this happen. We appreciate your bravery." Sarah stood tall, her confidence returning. "I just want to help put an end to this. No one else should have to live in fear." As the sun began to set, the Johnson family gathered in the living room. The room was filled with a sense of accomplishment and hope. Tommy looked around at his family, feeling stronger than ever. They had faced danger together and emerged united. Marcus raised a glass, signaling for silence. "I want to thank everyone for their support. Today was meant to be a celebration, and despite the challenges, we've come through stronger as a family." Everyone clinked their glasses, the atmosphere warm and filled with gratitude. Sarah smiled, feeling truly welcomed into the family for the first time, without secrets or fears. However, as the evening wore on, a lingering sense of suspense remained. Detective Ramirez approached the group, his expression thoughtful. "There's one more thing we need to discuss," he said quietly. "While the main threat has been neutralized, we've identified a few individuals who were indirectly involved. They might try to come forward or cause trouble." Marcus frowned. "What can we do to prevent that?" Ramirez considered for a moment. "We recommend implementing some security measures. It might be wise to install security cameras around your home and stay in touch with local law enforcement. Additionally, avoid sharing personal information online to reduce any vulnerabilities." Tommy felt a shiver run down his spine. "Is there a chance they could come after us?" Ramirez nodded. "It's unlikely, but it's always better to be prepared. We want to ensure your family remains safe." As Ramirez left, the family exchanged worried glances. The immediate danger was over, but the shadow of potential threats still loomed. They knew they had to remain vigilant, but also found solace in the fact that they had each other. That night, as Tommy lay in bed, he couldn't help but think about the day's events. He felt a deep sense of responsibility and a desire to protect his loved ones. The suspense of the past days had forged a bond within the family that nothing could break. He glanced out the window, watching the stars twinkle in the clear night sky. The darkness outside mirrored the shadows they had faced, but the light of their unity shone brightly within the house. Tommy knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, with courage and trust. The next morning, the Johnson family began to move forward. Sarah found a place to stay, integrating seamlessly into their daily lives. The wounds of the past began to heal, replaced by a newfound sense of hope and resilience. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Marcus turned to his son. "You did something incredible, Tommy. You stood up for the truth and protected our family. I'm proud of you." Tommy smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "I just wanted what was best for all of us," Linda added. "And that's exactly what we need: honesty, trust, and togetherness." As the days turned into weeks, the Johnson family settled into a peaceful routine. The suspense and fear gradually faded, replaced by the strength of their bond and the lessons they had learned. They had faced danger and uncovered shocking truths, but they emerged stronger and more united than ever. One quiet evening, Detective Ramirez stopped by to check in. "I wanted to let you know that all remaining threats have been addressed. The organization is no longer a danger to you or anyone else." Marcus thanked him sincerely. "We're grateful for everything you've done." Ramirez nodded. "It was a pleasure working with you all. Take care and stay safe." As he left, the Johnson family felt a profound sense of relief. The suspense that had once consumed their lives had given way to peace and understanding. They had navigated through darkness and emerged into the light, their love and trust unbroken. Tommy looked around at his family, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. They had faced the unexpected together and had come out stronger on the other side. The shadows of the past were behind them, and the future looked bright and promising.